Echoes of the Forgotten. When local journalist Dinah Mitchell received an anonymous tip about an old journal hidden in the attic of the notorious house on Haunted Hill, her curiosity was piqued. She had heard whispers of the house's dark past, but this was an opportunity to uncover a story that had been buried for decades. Armed with her camera under steely determination, Diana ventured into the house, her footsteps echoing through the dusty, abandoned rooms in the dim attic. She found the journal, its leather cover cracked and faded with age. The pages were filled with the mad scribblings of Dr. Arthur Blackwood, a scientist who had lived in the house during the early 20th century. The journal detailed Dr. Blackwood's chilling experiments, his twisted obsession with finding a way to bridge the gap between life and death. He had conducted gruesome tests on animals and eventually humans. His macabre work had been driven by the belief that he could harness the energy of the human soul to create a gateway between worlds. As Diana retraced Dr. Blackwood's steps, the house seemed to awaken, the shadows growing darker and more menacing. She found secret rooms hidden behind false walls, containing the remnants of the scientist's grisly experiments. Faint screams seemed to echo through the halls, the tormented cries of the doctor's victims. The deeper Diana delved into the house's secrets, the more she felt the presence of something sinister lurking within its walls. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen force that seemed to watch her every move. In the basement, she discovered the final piece of the puzzle, a hidden laboratory, where Dr. Blackwood had conducted his most unholy experiments. The room was filled with archaic equipment, and at its center stood a massive machine, an ominous altar to the Mad Doctor's ambition. As she examined the machine, Diana unwittingly triggered its activation. The room filled with an otherworldly hum as the air crackled with energy. The machine had been dormant for decades, but now it roared back to life. The echoes of the forgotten scientists were reverberating through time. The gateway that Dr. Blackwood had sought to create was opened, and a horrifying entity emerged from the shadows. It was a twisted, malevolent being born from the suffering of the Doctor's victims and the darkness of his own soul. The creature had been trapped within the house, but now it was free. The entity pursued Diana through the house, her terror mounting with each step. It fed on her fear, growing strong and more powerful as it chased her. She knew that she had to destroy the machine, to close the gateway and banish the entity back to the darkness from which it had come. In a final, desperate act, Diana set the machine ablaze, watching as the flames consumed the twisted metal and shattered glass. The entity screamed in rage, its power dwindling as the fire spread. It lunged at her, its claws inches from her face, but the gateway began to close, and the creature was dragged back into the void. The house on Haunted Hill shuddered as the fire continued to burn, its dark secrets consumed by the inferno. Diana escaped the house, her body battered but her spirit unbroken. She had faced the echoes of the forgotten and survived. As the flames died down and the smoke cleared, the house was left a charred, empty shell. The horrors that had been unleashed within its walls had been silenced, but the memory of Dr. Blackwood's twisted experiments and the terrifying entity would haunt Diana for the rest of her days. The house on Haunted Hill now stood as a monument to the darkness that had once consumed it, a stark reminder of the power of human obsession and the terrifying consequences of delving too deeply into the unknown. In the weeks that followed, Diana chronicled her harrowing experience in a series of articles that captured the attention of the entire town. People spoke of the house on Haunted Hill with a newfound reverence, and some even whispered that the ghostly apparitions that had once haunted its halls had been laid to rest. But Diana knew that the darkness could never be fully extinguished. The house still held secrets hidden within its burnt-out shell, waiting for the day when someone would once again venture inside and awaken the echoes of the forgotten. Years later, after her experiences at the house had faded into memory, Diana often found herself drawn back to the charred ruins. She would stand at the edge of the property, gazing at the remains of the house on Haunted Hill and remembering the terror she had faced within its walls. As she stared at the remnants of the house, she couldn't help but wonder if the darkness had truly been vanquished or if it merely lay dormant, waiting for the right moment to rise again. And though she could never fully escape the shadow of the house on Haunted Hill, she had learned a valuable lesson: that confronting the darkness within oneself was the only way to truly banish the ghosts of the past. For Diana, the echoes of the forgotten would always be a part of her, a chilling reminder of the thin line between curiosity and obsession, between life and death, and between the world of the living and the realm of the unknown. And the house on Haunted Hill would forever stand as a testament to the darkness that lurks within us all, waiting to be unleashed. The Dark Reckoning. The Baxter family arrived at the house on Haunted Hill with heavy hearts. They had endured an unimaginable tragedy and sought refuge in the crumbling mansion, hoping to heal their wounds and rebuild their lives. They were drawn to the old house, not knowing that it was a place where darkness dwelled. Tom, the patriarch, was a man broken by the loss of his son. His wife, Karen, did her best to hold the family together. Her own heart was filled with grief. Their two remaining children, Emily and Jake, struggled to cope with the void left by their brother's death. As they settled into their new home, the Baxter family found that they were not alone. The house seemed to breathe, and shadows moved in the corners of their vision. They heard whispers in the night, growing louder and more insistent with each passing day. The vengeful spirits of the house awoke, drawn by the family's pain. One by one, the Baxters were subjected to terrifying visions and ghostly encounters. Emily saw a dead brother in the mirror, his eyes filled with anger and accusation. Jake was haunted by a spectral figure that seemed to embody his deepest fears. As the supernatural occurrences intensified, Tom and Karen realized that they had to confront the house's dark history to save their family. They delved into the archives of the local library, unearthing stories of the house's past inhabitants, whose lives had been consumed by the very same vengeful spirits. The family discovered that the curse could only be broken by confronting their own demons, by facing the darkness within themselves. They had to accept the truth of their son's death, to forgive themselves and each other, and to find the strength to let go of their guilt and sorrow. As the dark reckoning approached, the spirits grew more aggressive, attempting to tear the family apart. The walls of the house seemed too close in around them, trapping them in a nightmare that threatened to consume them all. In the heart of the storm, the family stood together, their love and determination serving as their only weapons against the darkness. Tom held Karen close, and the two of them faced their guilt, finally accepting that their son's death was not their fault. Emily and Jay confronted their own fears and found the courage to let go of their anger and pain. As they embraced their newfound strength, the spirits that haunted the house began to weaken. The walls shuddered, and the shadows retreated, as if the house itself was in agony. In the final climactic moment, the family channeled their love and determination into a single, blinding burst of light. The spirits screamed in fury and despair, their power shattered by the family's unbreakable bond. The house fell silent, the curse finally broken. The Baxter family emerged from the dark reckoning, forever changed but stronger and more united than ever before. From that day on, the house on Haunted Hill stood as a testament to the power of love and forgiveness. The shadows that once lurked within its walls were banished, replaced by the warm glow of hope and the promise of a new beginning. The vengeful spirits that had tormented countless souls were gone, leaving only the whispers of their own dark reckoning, a chilling reminder of the horrors that had once unfolded within the house's walls. The haunting whispers. There was a chill in the air as the paranormal investigators approached the house on Haunted Hill, their breath visible in the cold moonlight. Their leader, Dr. Alice Caldwell, had assembled the team after hearing countless rumors about the haunted mansion. Though skeptics had dismissed the stories as mere urban legends, Alice was determined to uncover the truth. The house loomed ominously before them, its once grand facade now ravaged by time and neglect. As they stepped inside, the door creaked ominously behind them. The darkness was oppressive, broken only by the pale beams of their flashlights. It wasn't long before they heard it, the whispers. The sound seemed to be coming from the very walls themselves. A cacophony of voices all speaking at once. The team exchanged nervous glances but continued to explore the house. Each room was a testament to the house's dark history. They found a nursery with a shattered crib, its splinters covered in dried blood. In the master bedroom, they discovered a dusty journal containing the last entry of a tormented soul who had been driven to madness by the whispers. The deeper they delved into the house, the louder and more insistent the whispers became. It was as if the spirits were guiding them, revealing the house's secrets one by one. The team soon realized that the whispers were not just random words, but the tragic tales of the house's previous inhabitants, tales of betrayal, murder, and unspeakable suffering. But the whispers began to take their toll. The team's nerves frayed, and tensions rose as the hours wore on. They found themselves inexplicably turning against one another. Dark secrets were dredged up and ugly accusations thrown, as if the house itself were driving them apart. One by one, now the investigators began to succumb to the sinister forces within the house. Some fell victim to gruesome accidents, while others were driven to acts of violence or self-harm. In the end, only Alice remained, her once confident demeanor now shattered. As the whispers reached a fever pitch, Alice stumbled upon a hidden chamber in the bowels of the house. Inside, she found the source of the haunting, an ancient artifact, Pulsing with dark energy, it was a cursed talisman that had trapped the souls of the house's previous inhabitants, dooming them to an eternity of torment. In a final act of desperation, Alice shattered the artifact, releasing the tormented souls and silencing the whispers. But as the last fragments fell to the floor, she knew that her own fate was sealed. She too was now part of the house on Haunted Hill's dark history, forever bound to the malevolent spirits that had consumed her friends. And so the house continued to stand, silent and brooding, a monument to the horrors it had witnessed. And as the years passed and new occupants came and went, the whispers would return, a chilling reminder of the house's terrible past and a portent of the horrors yet to come. Years passed, and the house remained untouched. The local townspeople spoke in hushed whispers about the cursed mansion, passing down the tales of horror to new generations. The house on Haunted Hill seemed to wither further into disrepair, its dark secrets lying dormant within. One day, a young couple arrived in town, eager to start a new life together. They were outsiders, oblivious to the chilling stories that surrounded the house. The property was cheap, and they saw it as a fixer-upper, a project to pour their love and energy into. As they began the painstaking process of restoring the house, they could not help but feel a sense of unease. They brushed it off as mere superstition, but the whispers started anew, softly at first, then growing louder and more insistent. The couple, Sam and Lily, felt a growing obsession with the house's history. They started researching its past, unearthing the tragic tales of those who had lived and died there. They learned of the tormented souls who had been trapped by the cursed artifact, and of Alice Caldwell, the investigator who had released them only to be consumed herself. With each passing day, the whispers grew stronger, and the couple felt the pull of the house's sinister forces. Their love began to falter, strained by the relentless voices that seemed to drive a wedge between them. Determined to save their relationship, Sam and Lily delved deeper into the house's mysteries. They discovered the remnants of the shattered artifact, which Alice had attempted to destroy. The fragments still pulsed with dark energy, and the couple realized that the spirits of the house had not been fully vanquished. Together, they made a desperate plan to rid themselves of the curse. They would reassemble the artifact and perform an ancient ritual they had found in a dusty old stone, hoping to cleanse the house of its dark energy once and for all. As the ritual began, the whispers reached a fever pitch, and the shadows within the house seemed to come alive. Sam and Lily clung to each other, their love the only thing keeping them sane in the face of the rising terror. The ritual reached its climax, and the artifact began to glow with an eerie light. The air in the house grew heavy, and the shadows seemed to close in around them. The couple felt their very souls being torn from their bodies, as if the spirits were trying to claim them as their own. But in that moment, Sam and Lily's love proved stronger than the darkness. They held on to each other, refusing to let go, even as the shadows threatened to engulf them. Their love acted as a beacon, a light that pierced the darkness and shattered the curse once and for all. The artifact exploded in a burst of light, banishing the spirits and silencing the whispers forever. The house seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as if a great weight had been removed. Sam and Lily emerged from the ordeal forever changed. Their love stronger than ever, they had faced the darkness together and emerged victorious, breaking the cycle of horror that had plagued the house on Haunted Hill for generations. And so the house began a new chapter, one of love and hope. The shadows of its past were finally laid to rest, and the whispers that had haunted its halls were silenced, their chilling tales consigned to the pages of history. The shadows embrace. The legend of the house on Haunted Hill was well known among the residents of the sleepy little town. Tales of a sinister shadow that followed anyone who dared to enter its dilapidated walls circulated among the locals, instilling fear and curiosity in equal measures. One autumn evening, a group of friends gathered around a bonfire, sharing stories and daring each other to explore the infamous house. Emboldened by the camaraderie and the liquid courage in their hands, they made a pact to spend the night within the crumbling mansion, determined to debunk the myths that surrounded it. As they crossed the threshold, the house seemed to awaken, the air heavy with a palpable sense of dread. The friends, laughing nervously, began to explore the dusty rooms and creaking hallways. The sinister shadow whispered through the house, stalking them, unseen and unnoticed. As the night wore on, the friends began to feel the shadow's embrace, wrapping itself around their minds and hearts, sowing seeds of fear and paranoia. The once light-hearted group was now consumed by suspicion and unease as the shadow fed on their growing terror. Unable to escape the shadow's grip, the friends found themselves trapped within the house. the doors and windows inexplicably sealed shut. With each passing hour, the shadow grew stronger, tightening its hold on their minds and bodies. They fought to stay sane, to resist the darkness that threatened to consume them. In their desperation, the friends stumbled upon a hidden room, long forgotten and shrouded in cobwebs. Inside, they discovered a collection of ancient texts and artifacts, each one telling a piece of the horrifying truth behind the shadow and its insatiable hunger for human souls. The shadow was a malevolent entity, born from the darkest recesses of human fear and suffering. Was drawn to the house by the terrible deeds that had been committed within its walls, feeding on the pain and anguish of those who had fallen victim to its power. The friends realized that the only way to escape the shadow's embrace was to confront their own fears and insecurities, to face the darkness within themselves and break free from its hold. One by one, they stood before the shadow, bearing their souls and revealing their deepest, most vulnerable secrets. As they confronted their fears, the shadow began to weaken, its grip on their minds and bodies slowly loosening. The friends, their bonds forged anew in the face of their shared ordeal, stood united against the darkness, their love and trust serving as a beacon of hope. In a final, desperate attempt to save themselves, they performed a ritual they had found in one of the ancient texts, calling upon the power of love and light to banish the shadow once and for all. The house shuddered as the ritual reached its climax, and the shadow shrieked in agony, its power crumbling as it was forced back into the voids. Exhausted but victorious, the friends emerged from the house on Haunted Hill, their spirits bruised but unbroken. The shadow's embrace had been lifted, and they had learned a valuable lesson about the power of love, trust, and facing one's fears. The house now stood silent, the sinister shadow vanquished, but the memory of the friends' harrowing ordeal would live on, for they had faced the darkness, and in doing so, had discovered the light within themselves, a light that would forever burn bright against the shadows that dwell in the corners of the world. The Unraveling. In the heart of the sleepy town, the house on Haunted Hill loomed over its surroundings like a malevolent sentinel. For generations, the townsfolk had whispered about the dark secrets hidden within its crumbling walls, but none could have imagined the true horror that lay dormant, waiting to be unleashed. Stanley Krieger, a desperate man plagued by misfortune, had reached the end of his rope. His life was in shambles, and he sought salvation in the legends and myths surrounding the notorious house. Driven by a reckless determination, he ventured inside, hoping to find a way to change his fate. As Stanley explored the house's decaying interior, he stumbled upon a hidden room, sealed away for decades. Inside, he discovered an ancient artifact, a twisted, otherworldly object that seemed to hum with an ominous energy. He could sense the power it contained, pulsing like a heartbeat in his trembling hands. As driven by his desperation, Stanley used the artifact to rewrite his own history, erasing his past mistakes and forging a new, more prosperous life for himself. But in doing so, he unwittingly unleashed a series of events that would unravel the very fabric of reality, tearing at the seams that held the world together. The once quiet town was now plagued by inexplicable occurrences, shadows that moved of their own accord, whispers that echoed through the night, and rifts in time and space that defied all logic. The house on Haunted Hill became a nexus of these disturbances, drawing the terrified townsfolk like moths to a flame. As the anomalies grew in intensity, it became clear that the house was no longer a mere repository of dark secrets, but had become a living, breathing entity fueled by the chaos unleashed by the artifact. And with each passing day, Stanley, now haunted by guilt and the knowledge of the terrible force he had unleashed, returned to the house, determined to undo the damage he had caused. But the artifact, now infused with the power it had siphoned from the unraveling reality, had a will of its own, resisting Stanley's attempts to control it. As the house's influence continued to spread, the rifts in time and space grew larger and more dangerous, threatening to swallow the town whole. Desperate to save his home and the people he loved, Stanley enlisted the help of a group of courageous townsfolk, each of them touched in some way by the chaos that had been unleashed. Together they ventured into the heart of the house on Haunted Hill, battling the twisted manifestations of their own fears and desires as they fought their way to the hidden room where the artifact lay. The house seemed to come alive around them, its walls pulsating with an almost sentient malevolence, as if it knew that its very existence was under threat. In a climactic confrontation, Stanley and his companions faced off against the embodiment of the house's darkness, a creature born from the chaos and fear that had been unleashed by the artifact. As they battled the creature, Stanley reached for the artifact, focusing all his will and determination into a single, desperate act. With a deafening roar, the artifact shattered, its power dissipating in a blinding flash of light. Reality began to knit itself back together, the rift sealing shut and the shadows receding as the house's malevolent influence was finally vanquished. In the wake of the battle, Stanley and his companions emerged from the house on Haunted Hill, battered and bruised but alive. The artifact was destroyed, and the unraveling of reality had been halted, but the house still stood, a silent, brooding testament to the darkness that had once threatened to consume them all. The townsfolk, grateful for their salvation, began to rebuild their lives and mend the wounds left by the chaos that had existed. Stanley, forever changed by his ordeal, became a guardian of sorts, watching over the house on Haunted Hill to ensure that no other hapless soul would be tempted to unleash the darkness that still lingered within its walls. He knew that the house's secrets were far from exhausted, and that the fragile balance between reality and the unknown had been forever altered. As the years passed, the town slowly returned to its former tranquility, the terrifying events that had transpired becoming the stuff of whispered legends and cautionary tales. The house on Haunted Hill remained a haunting presence, a constant reminder of the thin line that separates the world of the living from the realm of nightmares. And though the artifact had been destroyed, and the unraveling of reality halted, Stanley could never forget the power that had coursed through his veins when he had first held it in his hands. The temptation to wield such power once again would haunt him for the rest of his days, as would the knowledge that the house and its dark secrets would always be there, waiting for the day when they would once again threaten to unravel the very fabric of existence. As